To interview our next guest is Meryl, co-founder of US Against Alzheimer, member of a global BrainTrust and author of a New York Times bestseller, Slow Dancing with a Stranger, Lost and Found in the Age of Alzheimer, a remarkable book. Meryl.
Thank you, Andrea. I was struck by Dr. Frazoni's comments. 50% of people today go undiagnosed and many live alone. So he painted a picture of an optimum solution. Our next guest, Dr. Rebecca Chopp, was far too modest. She had a storied academic career. She was the first woman chancellor at the University of Denver. She was also the president of Swarthmore and Colgate College, and a theologian and dean at the Yale Divinity School. So Rebecca, now with your credits that are well due, thank you for joining us. You've heard Dr. Frazoni talk. Tell us how you are doing now and where are you in the disease?
Well, thank you. You know, I just want to underscore that every case is unique. I'm in the early stages. I was very fortunate to be diagnosed early. So I'm in the MCI, the mild cognitive impairment stages. I enjoy life. I have hobbies. I get to walk and hike. I enjoy having the time to be with my husband and be with my son and friends. I mean, it's not all perfect. As Giovanni said, you know, I have to have crutches. I have my son drive me most of the time. I get very confused about time, especially. And I sleep a lot. I'm one of those people who slept 4 or 5 hours. I sleep 10 or 11 hours, and I have to avoid large social gatherings. But despite all that, I do live with joy.
Rebecca, let's go back to the time of diagnosis. 2 doctors both gave you different advice on how to manage your living in this disease. What were they, and were you misdiagnosed as well?
Well, I really wasn't misdiagnosed. I went, my annual physician figured out something was wrong. I hadn't really put 2 and 2 together. She sent me through testing. I ended up with the neurologist number 1. She was very brusque. She told me I had MCI with Alzheimer's. And when we asked her, my husband was with me, when we asked her what I could do, she said really nothing. And my husband said, well, what should we expect? And she said, well, 3 to 4 years, you probably won't be buttoning your clothes or feeding yourself. I decided to look for a new neurologist, and I found a great one. She took the time to explain the disease. She showed me my brain charts. She talked at length to me, and she said, live with joy. She talked to me and wrote a prescription for lifestyle intervention, creativity, diet, exercise, lots of exercise, at least 2 hours a day, she said, social engagement, intellectual engagement, but most of all, live with joy. I kept that neurologist.
Rebecca, Alzheimer's runs in your family on the maternal side, and the risk profile of those of us who have someone with the disease on the maternal side is higher. You're writing a book called It's Not Your Grandmother's Alzheimer's. What's different now, and do we have to be careful not to sugarcoat this disease?
We shouldn't sugarcoat this disease. This disease is tragic, and I'm so glad to hear the positive words that someday we will be able to prevent this disease. But you know, that stigma, it's like a binary thing, right? Mm-hmm. You get that diagnosis. And like my first doctor said, that's what most of us think. It's binary. I'm healthy. Now I have Alzheimer's. And in fact, now it's different from my grandmother, because in those days, they just diagnosed when you were in very later stages and there was nothing to do. Now it's different as people are more and more like me. They get diagnosed in early stages. And there are things we can do. There are medications, as Giovanni expressed, but there are also lifestyle interventions. So my book is about getting over that stigma, that cultural norms, that you have Alzheimer's, just sit down and die. My book is how to enjoy life. It talks about the research in layperson's terms that I underwent. And it also talks about the creativity. I learned to paint. I never knew I could paint. Exercise. I used it as an excuse to get a puppy. And now I walk an hour and a half a day. I do weightlifting. I do cardio. I work out at least 2 hours. I've learned to enjoy all sorts of great foods. I have some friends I had to weed out of my lovely garden of friends because they were pretty toxic. But I've made new ones and I have many old ones. I've joined book clubs. I want others to learn to live with joy and to live well. And that's what the book is really about.
Let's for a moment look at the stigma that surrounds the disease and how offensive it is, and your life experience, although you've risen above it and reframed how you live. What was it like? Were you asked to get off boards? I mean, you're a distinguished academician. You live it in your mind. What was it like?
You know, I first want to say many understood. I mean, I think everybody I knew was shocked. Friends had suspected something was going on, but maybe just aging. But when I told the board of trustees at the University of Denver, all these, super qualified people cried and expressed their deep love for me. And I heard that time and time again, but the stigma is there. I had people who talked louder to me, and I used to joke, I'm not deaf. I have maybe losing my mind, but I'm not deaf. I had people who asked me to get off boards. And I did have friends who kind of got in this pretend caring mode. And, I like to be asked how I'm doing. But they were like, can I do this? Can I do that? I mean, one has a long time, 10, 15 years. If you're lucky, you can stay pretty healthy. So it's a very mixed bag. And all of a sudden, I got very attentive to jokes about dementia.
Insulted by jokes about dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca, if people were to just meet you now without knowing that you were living with dementia, does it ever make you, and this is a very personal question, so I apologize up front, do you ever regret knowing that you had the disease as early as you did? Could you have stretched it out? I mean, everyone wants to stretch out the bright side to their life.
No, I never regret it for 1 second. Knowledge is power. That's my mantra. The more I know, the more I can do to take care of myself. Being forced to retire, I mean, they didn't make me retire, but I didn't want to start making mistakes in that kind of a job. I can now spend time with my husband. He put up with a very busy, preoccupied working wife for years. I could spend time with my son and my friends. I can get my affairs in order, and I can try to give back. I've become an Alzheimer's advocate. And most of all, life is made for joy.
Mm.
I mean, I really do think, God or the ultimate put us on earth to enjoy creation.
You're a theologian. How does spirituality support how you've managed to reframe the prism of this disease?
Well, I have had to reframe it, and I think we all do. Once you get this diagnosis and your care partners, you have to reframe your life. It's caused me to reframe my spirituality and in expanding it, really. I guess I find myself now at this stage kind of having three interrelated movements, my own ode to joy, like in Beethoven. The first is very much about abiding, and that's just what I was saying. I don't think I ever took the time just to be open. Walking in the mountains, abiding, being with my loved ones, just seeing the ordinary and the extraordinary. Annie Lamont talks about grace as transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. And I think it's so true. And I think to live with joy is to live in the light and to just open yourself to abiding.